This is Fugu from CreatorDAO, and I'm here today with Noor Haridi, the founder and a smart contract developer for Inverse Finance. Hey, Noor.
Hey guys, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. Good to speak. And before we get into the real stuff, I just wanted to start with a question. We all know Gabriel Haynes, showing up on Twitter, yelling and all this kind of stuff. And he's always wearing an Inverse sweater. Where did he get that Inverse sweater?
I think it's from the LOL DeFi project. It's an independent project, and they happen to just want to support us. I think that was months ago, and they just did an Inverse hoodie. But either way, Gabriel has actually been involved with Inverse from the very start. He's been around. We've talked a lot, like many months ago, about the Inverse and about all the things we're trying to achieve within the DAO. So yeah, we've talked a lot. I think he'd agree that we've been friends for a while, and I'm happy to see him kind of just showing some support for what we're doing still.
So if anyone wants to get one of these sweaters, they got to go through LOL DeFi. You guys don't have any.
I think they're sold out. No, we don't, and we're also not getting any proceeds from the LOL DeFi project. But we're definitely happy that they're supporting us and kind of spreading the word. And I'm not sure. I think they may be sold out. Maybe if anybody's interested, maybe they check. Maybe they should check. And if they are sold out, maybe you guys should kind of ask them to put them back on.
For sure. Do you have any of this merch yourself, or you don't even have any?
I don't. I actually don't. I don't have any. It's actually So. Where I'm based, it's just the international shipping is not very simple. So, but I would love to actually get one if they put it back on.
So, LOL DeFi, if you're listening, get Noor a sweater. He's cold. I'm not gonna dox you. I'm not even sure where you are, but I maybe it's cold, maybe it's not. But it is what it is. Now, Inverse Finance. Why are you guys called Inverse Finance?
Basically, that was a year ago. That was in December 2020 when Inverse started. And I actually didn't pick the name. It was at that point, the initial product, which was DC Evolts, was launched. There was no token, there was no DAO. There was really only like a very simple product and a Telegram channel and a bunch of people in it, like about 200 people. And there wasn't even a name. So the product actually wasn't launched yet at that point. It was just a bunch of contracts and a front end that I built. And I wanted to kind of put it live. So I basically just asked the people on Telegram, and we came up with all kinds of different names. And Inverse sounded, I think what Inverse kind of, the impression the Inverse as a brand right now gives, and I think also that was kind of the intended impression, is that kind of the values that we have and kind of the ways we're doing things in many different ways are almost the inverse of kind of the status quo and the standard and what most other projects are doing. And that encapsulates kind of a lot of things. So for example, the launch we did, there were no investors, there's no legal entity, there's no sale, public or private, just an airdrop to people who are involved. We also we started as a non-transferable token for many months. We started as the on-chain governance from day one, even before the token was transferable. That's one thing. We don't do audits. We think audits are actually harmful for the space because they encourage people to more money than they're willing to lose. They create a false sense of security. We don't. There are many other things. We're trying to kind of just try and find better and new ways that are usually very different from how other projects in DeFi in particular kind of just all seem to do in the same similar ways. The way they launch their projects, the way they approach security and safety, the way they raise funds, etc. So that's why it's Inverse, right?
Do you ever get mixed up with a Curve Wars project, with curve and concave and convex and all these curve related things that people ever say? Oh, inverse. That must be another one of these CVX related things.
So just to be fair, concave is not actually. I understand why a lot of people would kind of mix up concave maybe with convex, but they're actually not involved in the curve war. But to answer your question, no, we're actually, and that's also another way we're going at the complete inverse approach for dealing with the stablecoin competition. Every other project that's competing with Dola or any other project that's trying to do a decentralized stablecoin, they are all pushing and spending so much on the curve wars, and we're not involved at all with all that stuff. We're not paying we haven't paid a single dollar or token on bribes. We are, Dola is on curve. There is a gauge for it, but we don't spend anything on it. It's completely organic. DAO isn't involved with that kind of stuff. We don't think the whole, at least it's my personal opinion. Of course, DAO is a lot, DAO is larger than just my opinion or any single person's opinion. But at least the way I think about it is that this whole thing is not sustainable. And at the end of the day, curve rewards are inflationary emissions, and they're inflationary rewards. I mean, and at the end of the day, that cannot last forever. There needs to be other alternative ways that actually ensure long-term growth and not just short-term stablecoin supply and liquidity pumps, right?
For sure. So we could say that inverse kind of is all about going against the grain of the things that are common practice in DeFi.
Yeah, we really like to think about how we really like to take our time actually to think about things a little bit before we just follow the herd. Really, I feel like I think when you look at the curve wars, what happens in this kind of thing, and that also happens with audits. It happened in 2017 with ICOs. Like every time there's a harmful practice that suddenly becomes a practice, it's just one or two initial players they're extremely profitable, and then everybody else follows through. Even the honest players, they feel like they're pressured by their peers to kind of do the same thing without thinking a little bit about the actual long-term consequences. An example of this in 2017. I've heard a lot of, I listened to a lot of podcasts by Kane from Synthetics, and he was he's a little bit regretful about the decisions they made in 2017 after the ICO and how they basically were following the same practices of every single ICO project without actually taking the time to think about whether this is all really right. And it turns out that all of these projects they're extremely successful back then. Most of them are dead now. They don't even exist at this point. And some of them are basically ghost chains or ghost projects, and they just continue to exist in name, and they don't really have any activity or liquidity or anything. So we don't want to end up in that situation a couple of years from now, or 3, 4, 5 years from now. And yeah, and that's why when you look at Inverse, really you'll never see looking at Inverse's history for the past year. There's not even one minor scandal or controversy or security issue or on anything that anybody can attribute to Inverse that is even negative in any shape or form. And that's because we've really, really, really been very careful, and we've taken our time to actually think through every decision and every policy before we actually, make any decision.